Hello, everyone. And today we are going to be reading Article 2 and Article 3 of the United States Constitution. And I have underlined, actually, a few things in the Constitution. I wish I could show you what I've underlined. But I've, underlined some of these. I don't know if I could show it to you. But anyway, I've underlined some of the stuff in the Constitution. So a lot of it's outdated if you can't tell. So I updated a lot of the amendments that have changed the Article 2 and Article 3. I've also updated I pretty much underlined any article that's been upgraded. So I have actually underlined some Article 1 and I wanted to maybe I want to talk about Article 1 first. Some of the changes that were in Article 1, and I didn't mention this in the last episode, was in Section 2 of Article 1, which talks about the House of Representatives, there is no slavery and all Indians do get a representation in Congress, and that was superseded by the 14th Amendment. So even though the Indians do not pay taxes, the Native American Indians do not pay taxes to the United States, they still get represented. Also, I underlined the representation of the states of the old 13 states. Because that representation numbers are outdated, so there's no amendment changing the numbers. It's just Congress just changed over time. I also underlined Section 3, Article 1 of the Constitution. The 17th Amendment has just changed how these senators are changed by instead of the legislator, it would be the people that vote. So I've underlined that. And then in Section 9 of I think it's Section 9. Hold on. Yeah, in Section 9 of the Constitution, I've underlined the importation of such persons of any state now existing shall be proper to admit. So that was that 13th Amendment banned slavery, so it would obviously immigration, unwanted immigration, people not wanting to move there would be banned. So any slavery basically was banned. And then what was it? Also in Section 9, there's two things I underline in Section 9. Capitalization or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to a sentence or remuneration hereof by directly to be taken. And that was superseded by the 16th Amendment, which means the states do not have any say in how taxes are run federally, basically. Kind of. Or basically gives them a direct income tax. The federal government gets a direct income tax from the citizens instead of the states. So that's interesting. So, anyway, we're going to go back. I just wanted to talk about all the things I underlined and changed because I saw so many amendments and I realized, I'm just reading the old Constitution. So we're going to see if we can read it to some of the changes I have made. The annotated version of the Constitution. By the way, if you want an annotated copy, I will gladly sell this to you, but I'm not going to. But if you guys want my sexy handwriting, you can go ahead and buy it. Okay. Article 2, Section 1. The executive power shall be vested in President of the United States of America. He shall, in his office during the term of 4 years, together with the Vice President, choose for the same term, be elected as follows. Each state shall appoint in such matter a legislative thereof, but may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to the state which he may be entitled in Congress, but no senator or representative or person holding any office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. The electors shall in their respective states and vote by ballot for two persons. That needs to be underlined. I'm sorry. They only vote for one group of two people, technically. Who at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state themselves. They shall make a list of all persons voted for and the number of votes for each, in which they shall sign and certify, submit, and seal of the government of the United States, directed to the President of the Senate. Remember, the President of the Senate is the Vice President of the United States. The President of the Senate shall, In presence of the Senate and the House of Representatives, open all certificates, and the votes shall be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes shall be president. If the number be a majority of whole number of electors appointed, and if there be more than one of such majority, the equal number of votes, the House of Representatives shall immediately choose by ballot one of them for president. If no persons have a majority, then the 5 highest on the list in the House shall, in matter, choose the president. But in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken in by states, the representation from each state having 1 vote. A quorum for this purpose is to consist the member or members of 2/3 of the states, and a majority of all cases of the states shall be necessary to choose. In every case, after a choice of the president, the person having the greatest number of votes of electors shall be vice president. I underline that, actually. So that doesn't exist anymore. That in every case has been underlined. In every case, after a choice of the president, the person having the greatest number of votes of the electors shall be vice president. That has been underlined by the 12th Amendment, meaning that the president has to have a running mate from a different state. Basically, they cannot be like 2 different parties in one ticket. They kind of have to be in the same party. Well, technically speaking, they don't want arguments in the executive branch. They want the executive branch to run smoother. So that's why the 12th Amendment has destroyed that one where the second highest amount of electors is president. No, that doesn't exist anymore. It would be like Hillary Clinton with Donald Trump. Imagine Hillary Clinton being vice president. That doesn't work. Okay. I'm talking. Oh, man, that's gonna make me sound old. Or imagine Donald being vice president and then Joe Biden being president. That'd probably be better because that's a bit of an old thing. 2016. I'm still going back to 2016. 2020. If we had an election, it would be Joe Biden president and Donald Trump vice president in that old system. But in the new system, which we've been under since 1800, basically you'd have a president who picks a vice president who's normally in the same party. Not always, but 90% of the time in the same party. Okay. That being said, we're going to continue on. But in shall remain 2 or more of equal votes, the Senate shall choose from the ballot of the vice president. The Congress may determine the time of choosing electors, and on the day that shall be given their votes, on which day shall be throughout the United States. No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of the United States of the Constitution shall be eligible for office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible for that office who shall not attain the age of 25 years and 14 years a resident within the United States. In case of removal of the president of office, of death, resignation, or inability to discharge the powers and duties of said office, the same shall devolve on the vice president, and the Congress law provide in case of death, resignation, or inability of the president and vice president, declare what officer shall act as president, and such officer act according until the disability are removed, and the president shall be elected. So that was superseded by the 25th Amendment, technically. The words still sort of count. I don't really know how much of that wording, that whole paragraph, counts. I think it's just the last part. The president shall be elected. I think the 25th Amendment basically automatically gives someone presidency. So if somebody's died as president, these automatically 25th Amendment kicks in, and vice president gets sworn in, basically. So Congress doesn't really have anything to say. They did make a law basically saying it should be president and then vice president, and then it should be Speaker of the House, which is the highest person in the House of Representatives. Then it should be the Senate Pro Tempore. Then it should be the Secretary of Defense, and then it should be all the Secretary departments. So everybody else in the executive branch, basically. It goes all the way down to the executive branch. Okay. We're done pretty much with the underlined stuff. Okay, we're done talking about the underlined stuff. So now I can just read the next section. The president shall, at times, receive for his services a compensation which neither shall be increased nor diminished during the time in which he has been elected, and shall not be received in that period any annulment of the United States or of any of them. Before the execution of his office, he shall, on following of an oath or affirmation, I solemnly swear or affirm to faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States, and on the best of my ability preserve and protect to defend the Constitution of the United States. Section 2. The President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into service of the United States, and may require the opinion in writing of a particular officer in executive departments in subject of relating to his duties in respective offices, shall have the power to grant reprisals and pardons for offenses against the United States, except for cases of impeachment. He shall have the power, by advice and consent of the Senate, make treaties, provided 2/3 of the Senate's present couture shall nominate by and advise of the Council of the Senate, appoint ministers and other public ministers, councils, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States, whose appointments are hereby otherwise provided, and shall be established by law. But the Congress may by law vest an appointment of such inferior officers that they think proper, the President alone, in courts of the law or in heads of department. The President shall have the power to fill all vacancies that happen in resource of the Senate by compensations shall expire at the end of the next session. Section 3. He shall from time to time give Congress information of the state of the Union, recommended by the consideration of such measures shall be judged necessary and expedient. He may on extraordinary occasions convert both houses or neither of them in cases of disagreement between them in respect of time of adjournment, or he may adjourn in such time to think proper, shall have ambassadors and other public ministers, shall take care of the laws, be faithfully executed, and commission all officers of the United States. Section 4. The President, Vice President, and all civil offices of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. We've only really had I think we've only really had one president impeached. I could be wrong on that. Or, removed. I know there's one that resigned, but I don't think we've ever had, an official impeachment. Okay, so that was Article 2. That was the executive branch, or what we call the presidency. Which I don't know if I just call the executive branch is 4 million employees, okay? I don't think I just call it the presidency. I think it's a bit too simple, but it's okay. Article 3, Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. That the judges of both the Supreme Court and inferior courts shall hold their offices in times of hold their offices during good behavior, and shall at times receive for their services a compensation that shall not be diminished during their continuation in office. So basically, they serve for much longer than a senator or a president, because they have a longer term. Some of them serve for life. Think of the Supreme Court; they serve for life. There's no technically age limit for the Supreme Court, or no how long they can serve. They could serve for decades. Section 2. I have underlined one of the parts of the Section 2, which is we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but. Section 2. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution. All laws of the United States and treaties made shall be made under the authority in all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and councils. 2. All cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction. 2. Controversies within the United States shall be to a party. Controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state. I've underlined that because the 11th Amendment changed between a state and citizens of another state. Basically, that bans that. The wording of the 11th Amendment destroys that. Between citizens of between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands and grants under states, and between a state and the citizens thereof, of foreign states or subject, and foreign states and citizens or subjects. I guess the 11th Amendment also would probably restrict the foreign states one too. I'm not 100% certain, but basically the 11th Amendment is supposed to strengthen the state's power in the judicial branch because of the weird Georgia case. I forgot the name of it, but it's okay. In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and councils, and of those which of state shall be a party, the Supreme Court shall have the original jurisdiction. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall be appetite justine in both law and fact, in which exceptions under resignations of Congress shall be made. The trial of all crimes, except for the cases of impeachment, shall be made by jury, and such trials shall be held in the state where the said crimes shall have been committed, but have not committed within any state. The trial shall be in such place or places that Congress, made by law, have directed. Section 3. Treason against the United States shall consist in levying war against them, or adhering to their enemies, giving them aid or comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on testimony of 2 witnesses of the same overt act, or of confession in open court. The Congress shall have the power to declare punishment of treason, but no interment of treason shall be work of corruption or blood, or fervor except during the life of a person attained. So basically that this defines what treason is, I guess. It's basically the treason section of, and that was the end of section Article 3, which is one of the smaller articles. I just read Article 2 and Article 3, which is the executive branch, which is the 4 million employees plus the president and vice president and his cabinet ministers, and then the judicial branch would be the Supreme Court. What are the lower courts, or what you call district courts, which I think I live in district court. I don't remember what district court I live in, but then the Supreme Court of Maryland, and then there's lower courts like the county courts and city courts and stuff like that. So if you violate a city law, you go up to the city law Supreme Court, and in the city, you could say, oh, this violates the state constitution. You go up to the state, let's say state Supreme Court, and you're like, okay, I feel like this is gonna, I don't know, for whatever reason, the state feels like they're violating some sort of amendment here. I can go and appeal to the district court, which I forgot what district I live in. Let's say I live in district, I don't know, let's say I live in District 4 for whatever reason. I don't know what district Maryland is in, but let's just say, for instance, or whatever state I live in. Let's say I live in California, District 9, right? I can appeal to District 9, right? I used to live in California. I love California. One of my favorite states. Beautiful state. District 9, right? I go to the Supreme Court of California. I'm like, this violates the federal constitution. I'm going to go to the appeal court. And the appeal court, for the most part, in California, they always vote differently than the rest of the courts in the United States. They don't follow the Constitution like the rest of the United States. I mean, yes, they're supposed to, but they like to follow their own rules. They're more humanitarian, or more like oh, we don't punish people that often. You know what I mean? Kind of like Ninth Circuit Court or whatever. That's what they call Circuit Court of Appeals. I'm so dumb. That's the name of the court system. So Circuit Court of Appeals. I think there's like maybe 13 of them. I'm not 100% certain on that. Anyway, I think the California's in the Ninth Circuit. Anyways, besides the point. And then after the Circuit Court, you go to the Supreme Court, because there's nothing higher up than the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court basically can do whatever the heck they want. I mean, they are the judges of the Constitution. If they feel like you're violating the Constitution, they technically, for the most part, the government won't always act on the Supreme Court's best interest. Think of the Trail of Tears, right? Trail of Tears was completely unconstitutional. Supreme Court completely argued that it was completely unconstitutional. Guess what? We still did it anyway. It was an ugly thing in our past that we did, or at least the United States did. Not I had no take in it, but older people did in the Constitution. That is completely just terrible, right? Trail of Tears. Supreme Court says you cannot do this. It violates these people's rights. Guess what we did anyway? We violated their rights. We violated the Constitution by doing that. So, also, the Supreme Court has done some terrible terrible thing, the Dred Scott case or whatever, right? So the Supreme Court has done some terrible things, and there was no justification for the Dred Scott case, or even think about abortion. Like, there's no law written about abortion technically before. There's no federal law about abortion in 1971, right? When they made the abortion argument, it basically upset a lot of people who were against abortion. I mean, you could argue that the 14th Amendment, that's what they argued for. 14th Amendment, I think, was what they were like using it justification wise, because they don't just do things by the Constitution. They do things by the amendments, which are part of the Constitution. Don't get me wrong. Amendments are part of the Constitution, but they're not part of the full Constitution. Or they're not part of the Constitution that was written in the 1700s, mind you. So, but yeah, they will follow the amendments, and they will choose certain wording for their amendments to basically make the Supreme Court more powerful. Although I would argue they should have never messed with they should have just let this should be up to the states, or should be up to the federal government. It shouldn't be up to the Supreme Court, in my opinion. It should have been up to the people who make laws. The problem is there was no law they wanted to decide on it right away. And I just don't know what you should do when I guess if you lose a court case at the beginning, right? Because it is technically against the state law, and then the Supreme Court basically says, no, that's unconstitutional. What the state's been doing is unconstitutional. It violates the 14th Amendment. Do you win money? I don't know exactly how it works, but I imagine that's how it works. I mean, if you violate your state's law, but then the state law is unconstitutional, the Supreme Court says it is, do you win money, or do you win something? But I guess you just win the fact that the Supreme Court recognizes that you were violated by the state of which you're in. So, I mean, that's kind of a weird thing. The next reading we will do is probably the next 3 articles. Well, probably all 4 of them. The 4 next articles, because Article 4 is the biggest out of the 4 last articles. Although I might just continue to read. I want to read the last 4 articles in the Constitution. Article 4 is the biggest. It has 4 sections in it. The last 3 don't have any sections in it. They only have 1 section each. So, like Article 7, I don't really need to read that, because it is how to ratify the Constitution, but we've been living under it for so long. Like, why should I read it? Kind of thing. But I will read it just because I can. But I hope you enjoyed me trying to explain. I've annotated this Constitution, so I've wrote down what changes have been in. I've wrote down some changes. I've underlined basically everything that has been changed. I might just do a whole full reading. When I get done reading this, I might just post a whole full video of me reading this. Because I realized that the last video was a train wreck because I was trying to explain the amendments in Article 1, and I couldn't because I didn't underline anything before. So I might just repost that video, or I might just redo it. I don't know. I'm not going to delete it, but I'll see what I could do with that. Anyway, you are someone, I am someone else. I was reading the law of the land, I should say, of the Constitution. Signing out.